आयुष गोयल, हेलो,
यस सर।
बहुत वॉइस आ रही है आपकी। So, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, sir.
Very good morning. Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Very good morning. Thank you very much. By the time we could start it, because only about 60 students have joined till this time. So you can ask your doubts, if any, in the previous two classes. If you have any doubt, you want to discuss something, you can ask the question. I will just try to satisfy you. Isn't it? If you have some problem, please let me know. On Saturday, I will upload the notes. Isn't it? Let me complete the, or tomorrow I will upload the notes till I have covered whatever we have covered. I will select the slides and notes and I will upload it. So is there any doubt? Saurav Kumar, Akash Kumar Gupta, Shashank Shekhar, Jaka Venkata Raval, Priya Pachauri, Avinash Kumar Singh.
Yes, sir.
Is there any doubt in earlier two lectures? If you have some problem, you can discuss it.
No, sir.
Could you see the slides? The slide determination of calorific value.
Yes, sir.
So let us start. We have completed up to 27th slide. This is 28th. So determination of calorific value. As I have told you that the calorific value of fuel is determined by a device which is known as calorimeter, depending upon the nature of the sample, whether it can be weighed or it cannot be weighed. There are two types of calorimeter in general. One is the bomb calorimeter, by which you can determine the calorific value of your solid fuel or non-volatile liquid fuel. And the gas calorimeter, there are 2-3 types, but we will discuss only Boyer's gas calorimeter. In the gas calorimeter, you determine the calorific value of volatile liquid and gaseous fuel. We cannot be, because gases and volatile liquid cannot be weighed accurately and put into the bomb and then it is ignited. So that is not possible. So these two types of calorimeter are there. But you keep in mind that whether it is a bomb calorimeter or it is a gas calorimeter, we will be determining higher calorific value or gross calorific value, isn't it? But the actual calorific value which we need is net calorific value, the heat which is available for doing purposeful work, isn't it, from a fuel. isn't it? That is lower calorific value or net calorific value. But since net calorific value or lower calorific value cannot be determined experimentally and accurately, therefore by any device, therefore now you are able to see the slide. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Slide is
Because there was network problem, so in the bomb calorimeter or gas calorimeter, in both cases we are determining higher calorific value. So this higher calorific value is used for determination of lower calorific value or net calorific value by subtracting the latent heat of condensation of steam, which we have discussed earlier. Now coming over to the process of determination, you can see here that these measurements are obtained by burning a representative sample in a high pressure oxygen atmosphere within a metallic bomb. We are discussing the bomb calorimeter, isn't it? So we will discuss the bomb calorimeter and Boyle's gas calorimeter, isn't it? So metallic bomb is there where we have a absorbing medium, isn't it? Surrounding that bomb, we will keep the sample in the bomb, isn't it? Supply sufficient amount of good amount of oxygen into it. Then we have a device by which within the bomb the combustion can be started and the heat will be generated, and then this heat will be absorbed by the material of the calorimeter as well as by the absorbing medium. Here the absorbing medium surrounding which is present around this bomb is water. So known amount of water will be present there. The weight of the mass of the water will be known to us. Then the initial temperature we have already recorded. Then the highest temperature attained will be recorded. So from all this data and few certain more things, certain constant, that is the water equivalent of the calorimeter, you will be able to find the HCV, isn't it? So this is how the HCV is determined from a bomb calorimeter. We say the bomb calorimeter looks like this as outside, from outside. It looks like this, where you have a metallic bucket here, isn't it? And with a covering or a lid. Then inside this, the entire thing which is shown in the form of blue color, it is water which is filled up to certain level. You have a thermometer. There are two terminals of a battery, positive and negative, which two terminals which will link to the two terminals of a 12-volt battery outside this. Then this is inserted into a bomb. Here, this is the bomb, isn't it? Which is made up of a thick wall steel. Bomb is there, isn't it? Then inside this is a crucible. It is also made up of steel. Now this crucible, you put your sample here, whether it is a non-volatile liquid or it is a solid, say for example coal. You put it here in the powdered form. Then for igniting this sample, we'll discuss it here in the better way. You are putting a coil here, that is magnesium fuse wire, isn't it? And the circuit is not closed. It's not switch on. It is switch off. So like this is a stirrer, mechanical stirrer, which is run by a motor from the top. So this is the entire calorimeter. The cut section is shown here. You can see that this is a bomb which is made up of thick polystyrene. Bomb is there. Then you have a strong lid here, which will, from inside, this lid is Teflon coated. From inside, this lid is Teflon coated. So once you put the sample here, the known amount of the sample, X gram, into this crucible, and then you will attach it with a magnesium fuse wire in such a way that it is attached to one terminal, isn't it, another terminal, and also it is embedded in the sample, isn't it? Embedded in the sample. Suppose you have powdered coal, it is embedded into this. And this here it is attached with the two terminals of the battery here, which is in switch off condition initially. Then you have an oxygen inlet here, isn't it? With a knob here by which you can tighten it. So you open this knob, attach this to your oxygen cylinder, and push or fill enough pressure of air, enough oxygen into this chamber. Once you have tightened it, open this, attach it to cylinder, and fill the good amount of gas here, oxygen gas here. You know that without oxygen, combustion cannot take place. So this you will do, and after filling the oxygen, again you will tighten this. So no gas will be allowed to escape from this, either from the lid or from this oxygen inlet. So this will be tightened. Now then you keep it into this bucket. This is also a steel bucket where you will keep this known amount of sample here, and then bomb you will be keeping inside. Now outside this, if you see a known mass of water is kept. Once volume is known, mass is 1, density is 1, so mass will also be known of this water. Now here this water here you can see the thermometer is attached, which will check the temperature of water, initial temperature and the highest temperature or a rise in temperature can be taken from this. Then there is a mechanical stirrer. You can see that blades are here. Same thing, this one, which is run by a motor, isn't it? By electric motor. So it will keep on stirring the water so that temperature of water is same all over, isn't it? Otherwise, if you don't put the mechanical stirrer, the temperature of water, which is very close to bomb after combustion, will be higher as compared to water here. So that is why you are putting a mechanical stirrer so that it will stir water so that temperature of water is same all around. Then this bucket is here where you are keeping water is also provided with a gap here, which is air bucket, air pocket is there because air space is there, you can see, which is bad conductor of heat. Then you have insulating material here all around, insulating material, and a metallic case also. So a good amount of a good material which is insulating is kept here, and then a bucket. Then entire thing is again rather is again covered by a lid. This lid, a strong lid is there, which is also having some insulating material and then metallic cover, isn't it? So this is entire calorimeter. Now you have put your sample here, X gram of the sample. You have taken a known amount of water. You have taken the initial temperature of water T1, isn't it? Now what you do? You complete the circuit, isn't it? This is connected to battery, two terminals of battery provided with a switch here somewhere. So you switch on the circuit. What will happen? The 12-volt battery will ignite this wire, magnesium fuse wire. It will start burning. The 12-volt battery will start when you switch it on the circuit. Then this magnesium fuse wire will start burning. When this burns, because your sample is in touch with the magnesium fuse wire and it is in dried condition, in very good dried condition. So what will happen? Your cold sample will also be ignited. Since you have sufficient amount of air, so that complete combustion will take place, because formation of carbon monoxide will not take place, and complete combustion, so that the combustion products are carbon dioxide, water. If suppose nitrogen is there, then oxides of nitrogen. If sulfur is there, then oxides of sulfur. All these are formed as a result of combustion of your fuel. So whatever amount of heat is liberated as the result of combustion reaction will be absorbed first by the material of the calorimeter, isn't it? And then water, all materials of the calorimeter, isn't it? So generally, this is also made up of steel. Thermometer is here, so that whatever heat is liberated as the result of combustion of your fuel will be then transferred to water. The temperature of water will rise, isn't it? A maximum temperature will be attained, isn't it? You can get accurate measurement here because you are having magnifying eyepiece. So accurate measurement of rise in temperature you can observe. Now with this data, here you can put this data, higher calorific value. This you can also write GCV, both are same. I told you HCV and GCV both are same. So this HCV will be equal to capital W, isn't it? This is a mass of water which I have taken here. Mass of water, isn't it? I've told you that there are two things which will absorb the evolved heat. One is the material of the calorimeter, isn't it? ETC, material of the calorimeter will also absorb heat along with this inlet, these poles, isn't it? all this will absorb heat. First thing. The second is that water will also absorb heat. So that is why there are two factors which will absorb heat. Here it is in case of W, isn't it? It is the water equivalent of calorimeter. You please try to understand, isn't it? Because this is in terms of weight or mass. This also have to come in terms of mass. Mass is, it is the mass of water, isn't it? Which would have heated to the same rise of temperature if the heat has not been absorbed by the material of the calorimeter. अगर material of calorimeter जो है उसमें इतनी heat नहीं absorb होती तो कितना और water, ठीक है, इसी temperature तक heat हो जाता. इसको कहते हैं water equivalent of calorimeter. That depends upon the mass of the material of the calorimeter and the nature of the material of the calorimeter. The nature is put into the terms of mathematical expression. Nature is expressed as specific heat of the material. Specific heat of the material. So mass of the calorimetric material and the specific heat of the calorific material will give you the small w, that is known as water equivalent of calorimeter. And now since we know that when mass is not going to change very easily and the nature will never change, that is a specific heat will not change, isn't it? Mass may change, I will tell you, after very long use. So for fairly very long time, what I want to say, this small w will be constant. You know this capital W, which is mass of water. Small w is a water equivalent of calorimeter. That is why it is also put in terms of mass. Capital W plus small w. T2 minus T1. T1 we have recorded initially. T2 is the highest temperature attained. So the difference of this will give you the rise in temperature due to the combustion reaction of water and calorimeter, isn't it? Divided by X. This is the X amount of the sample which you have taken. Here, one thing we have not taken here, that is the specific heat of water, which is taken as 1 here in the numerator, and therefore 1 calories per degree, which is the specific heat of water. So because it is 1, it is not indicated here. Now, so this is the thing which will give you the H3V, isn't it? Now there are certain, one thing I would like to tell you, that here you have water equivalent of calorimeter. What I have told you just now, that it is fairly constant for a very long time, isn't it? It is fairly constant for a very long time. Why I say this? Because constant is a constant, you can say. I told you that this constant will be dependent upon mass of the material of the calorimeter, etc., and the nature of the calorimeter material. The nature of the material will not change, will never change. But what is there? Mass will slightly change. How? What happens that when you do the experiment here, please try to understand, this is very important. You see, when you determine the calorific value of a sample 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, isn't it? Even for the first time, what will happen? Here, oxides of nitrogen and sulfur are there, which will react with this. I will come to it later on. So, some sort of by the burning and sputtering, some of the byproducts can be sticking on the wall of the crucible as well as on the wall of the calorimeter, the bomb, isn't it? On the wall of the bomb. So what will happen? These are bad conductor of heat. So every time you do this experiment, you have to wash it so as to remove the deposits here and inside the crucible. Inside the crucible, you have to wash it. But simple washing by water will not do the job. So therefore, because some salt may be insoluble in water, so it will not be washed. Therefore, we are washing it with 0.1 normal HNO3 nitric acid. 0.1 normal nitric acid. You see, we are not taking the sulfuric acid. Why? Because sulfuric acid you can take HCl as well, but better many things may not be soluble. So that's why nitric acid is taken. Sulfuric acid we cannot take because generally by this experiment we also determine the sulfur content of the fuel. So that is why if you cannot add sulfuric acid here. Only nitric acid is used. So nitric acid, 0.1 normal nitric acid is used. So once you do the experiment, you have to wash this with 0.1 normal nitric acid. You see, when you wash any metal, any material, metallic material with nitric acid, or for that matter any acid, some of the material will be dissolved also in the or leached out in the nitric acid solution, isn't it? So for one washing or two washing, there is no change in the, not enough material has leached out from the bomb, and therefore there will be no change in the mass. When there is no change in the mass, no change in the value of small w, isn't it? But when once you do it, say for 50 times, you have determined, and then you have washed it 50 times, isn't it? Every time you have to wash it. So 50 times you have washed. Then the material which is leached out or dissolved in the nitric acid from the crucible and the bomb is no more negligible. It is no more negligible. So what will happen? This change of mass will take place. Some material will be dissolved, so mass will be changed. Mass will be lessened or decreased. And therefore, this small w will change, isn't it? So generally in the start, the manufacturer gives you the value of a small w, isn't it? And if they don't supply, then what you have to do? After doing so many determination, say 50, 60, 70, you have to reassess, redetermine the small w. How you do? By what you can do? You can burn a standard sample whose HPV is known to you, isn't it? So there are certain materials such as naphthalene is there, by which you can burn the sample in the bomb calorimeter here, known amount of the sample, known amount of water, isn't it? And you know the HCV of that standard. You burn it. Then you know HCV of that standard. You know the weight of water taken. You know that initial temperature T1. You know the final temperature at T2. And you know that X amount, X gram of the sample you have burned, isn't it? X gram of the sample you have burned. So therefore, you can again only unknown quantity will be small w. So by burning a standard so by burning a known amount of known weight of the standard sample, you can determine the small w. Now this small w will be again fairly constant for say 50 to 60 determination. And again you have to reassess the small w. So this is how the small w can be determined. That's why we don't say that it is a constant. It is constant for fairly longer time. So this is about small w and how it can be reassessed. Now coming over to this, again you can see, if you see this diagram again you see this diagram. What we are using by this equation which we have determined here, isn't it? Here, if you look into this apparatus, there are certain corrections which you have to make into this equation. This equation is not very accurate. This one is not very accurate, isn't it? Why we say for doing this, you look into this, isn't it? What happens, you see? You see, you are using a fuse wire here, magnesium fuse wire, isn't it? You are using a magnesium fuse wire, isn't it? You know the weight of this magnesium fuse wire. You are igniting it, and then this helps in starting the combustion reaction of the fuel. So when you ignite a magnesium fuse wire, what will happen? It will also evolve, some heat will be evolved by the combustion of or ignition of the magnesium fuse wire. Some heat will be evolved, and this heat will also be added into will help in rising the temperature of the calorimeter and the water, isn't it? So in this way, it will also be included into the determined calorific. Though this is not the part of fuel, this magnesium fuse wire is not the part of fuel. So this is an additional heat which is evolved by the combustion or ignition of magnesium fuse wire. So this has to be subtracted. The first correction is the fuse wire correction, and it will be there with the negative sign. It has to be subtracted. We know that suppose 1 gram of the fuse wire will give you how much calories of heat upon combustion, isn't it? So this is known to us. So similarly, we will know that how much gram of the fuse wire you have taken here. So you know the mass of this. You know that per unit mass it liberates this much calories of heat. So that heat will be known to you. That by wrapping up this much fuse wire, how much heat will be generated. So that calories of heat has to be subtracted. First thing. Then the second correction, you see, the corrections are listed here. The first correction is fuse wire correction, isn't it? This I have just explained to you. Then cooling correction. You see, again you come here. Whatever you do in order to prevent the heat loss to the surrounding, isn't it? You have insulating material, you have covered lid, but still this is coming out in the air, isn't it? The metallic one. This is also coming out. This is also here, isn't it? So whatever you do, isn't it? Some heat will be lost to the surrounding. Some of heat evolved by the combustion reaction will be lost to the surrounding, isn't it? And therefore, the actual rise of temperature, which we have mentioned here, is not very accurate, isn't it? Because some heat has lost to the surrounding, isn't it? If that heat would have not lost to the surrounding, then the temperature rise will be slightly more. So that has been corrected in terms of cooling correction. Cooling correction is determined by a certain experiment also very accurately, but in general, the cooling correction is therefore determined by noting the rate and time of cooling from higher to room temperature. If the rate of cooling in degrees per minute and actual time taken is x minute, and then cooling correction is x into dt must be added to the rise of temperature. So therefore, this T2 minus T1 plus a corrected temperature, that is Tc. You see, this rise in correction is of the order of 0.1 or 0.056, isn't it? Degrees centigrade. It's not much, but that will make a good difference. So that is why, and this is known as Tc. Cooling correction is known as Tc, cooling correction, and it will be added here, isn't it? Now you can see this in this slide. You see this HCV is equal to capital W plus small w, T2 minus T1 plus Tc. This plus Tc is cooling correction, which you determine by this, isn't it? It's not very accurate, but still it is sufficient for the experimental work. There are other methods where full experiment can be done, isn't it, in order to determine the cooling correction of that material, that calorimeter, isn't it? So Tc with a plus sign. You see, this I have already taken. Correction for fuse wire, isn't it? Calories of fuse wire or correction of fuse wire, isn't it? You can say it is plus, but here outside this bracket there is minus. So these two factors are negative with a negative sign. Now there's one more correction, that is Ca. It is known as correction for acid formation, isn't it? Or calories of liberated by acid formation. Correction for acid formation. As you see, again this, isn't it? You focus your rather you do your inside this bomb, isn't it? What happens? That inside this bomb you have oxides of nitrogen and oxides of sulfur. How they are formed? They are initially formed by the combustion of sulfur, isn't it, in presence of oxygen, to give you certain oxides of sulfur. Since two oxides are there, so it is written as XOX. Similarly, nitrogen compounds will burn, will ignite, or will undergo combustion reaction to give you NOx. So, oxides of nitrogen and oxides of sulfur are present here inside this bomb. Now you can see that, and this is a part of combustion reaction, isn't it? Burning of sulfur, burning of nitrogen to give you oxides of sulfur and oxides of nitrogen is a part of combustion reaction. So whatever heat is liberated by this specific reaction from here to here, in the formation of oxides of nitrogen and sulfur, it's a part of heat liberated by the combustion reaction. So it is included in the calorific value, the higher calorific value. But the situation in the calorimeter is such, inside this bomb is such, that here water vapor are also present. Water vapor has come out of as a result of combustion of hydrogen. Since high temperature is there, a good pressure is also formed here because of solid changes into a gas, and already oxygen was there, isn't it? So the combined effect is, isn't it, combined effect of formation of the combined effect will be that the NOx which is present here or SOx which is present here, they will further react under high temperature and high pressure, and in presence of water vapor they will further react. You see, they will further react from here to here, you can see. They will further react to form sulfuric acid. NOx will further react to form nitric acid. Now, these two reactions, that is formation of sulfuric acid and formation of nitric acid, they are an additional reaction. They are not the part of combustion reaction. They are an additional reaction. And because both these reactions, SOx formation into sulfuric acid and nitric acid, both are exothermic in nature. Both are exothermic in nature. And whatever heat is evolved as a result of formation of sulfuric acid and nitric acid is not the part of combustion process. Rather than this is an additional reaction. So this heat is also not the part of combustion, heat of combustion of fuel, and therefore it is also has to be subtracted. So here you will do this correction as well. You know that you can determine that how much sulfuric acid has formed, how much nitric acid has formed. You know, because you know the elements present in the, how much sulfur is present, how much nitrogen is present in the coal, isn't it? So accordingly, you will get the acid. So this acid you know, and then you know that how much heat might have liberated. So that heat has to be subtracted here. And now this, that is the accurate reaction, the equation will be therefore HCV is equal to capital W small plus small w into T2 minus T1 plus Tc, that is cooling correction, then minus acid correction and the fuse wire correction divided by X. This is the accurate equation which can be utilized for doing, for determination of this. Now let us, first of all, let me take the attendance, that is download the attendance, and then we will discuss this further. So the attendance I have downloaded, and now I would like to stop the recording so that it can be saved. Recording.